Peace and Black Power family. This is your brother Sutek Amin Ra. This is my son.
Your boy Radio God Stu. And we want to welcome y'all to the first episode of the Like Father, Like Son podcast.
Yes, sir.
Finally here, man. We're happy to take this journey with you. We're going to be discussing a lot of important things, giving y'all a lot of information. So definitely make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notified whenever we drop new content. All right, you ready?
Ready.
All right, let's get into it. So recently, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, he signed into law HB 426, which is a hate crime bill law that if you target somebody, a victim, based on their sex, their gender, their religion, their nationality, you will have enhanced sentencing. So, you know what I mean? I think that's definitely dope. Georgia was one of the last states.
Right.
One of the 4 states that didn't have a hate crime bill.
That's crazy.
On the books. So, you know what I mean? Definitely pleased to see that, you know, we're making change through the protests and people are letting their voices be heard, but we're actually getting legislation passed right now. Do you feel like he was facing pressure to pass that bill?
Absolutely. I think the protests put a lot of pressure on him because that's the topic right now. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? The police brutality, gay and LGBTQ rights, all of that. You know, so yeah, he's feeling a lot of pressure, and I think a lot of that pressure is coming from he just had a very, very close gubernatorial race in Georgia with Stacey Abrams. Mm-hmm. You know, she came very, very close to winning that job.
Right.
They said there was a lot of shenanigans that went on, some impropriety in him winning, but he felt the heat. Right. You know, even with the impropriety that, you know, they talking about, he felt the heat. And she had a very, very good strategy to apply that pressure on him. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of politicians cater to the registered voters. Mm-hmm. She went out and added to her strategy to cater to unregistered voters to make a case for them to register. Mm-hmm. And that allowed her to put significant pressure on this governor. So now he has to try to gain some political capital with those new registrants. Mm-hmm. You know, so yeah. He's feeling the heat.
So you feel like he has to establish trust with the new voters that have now joined the voting pool.
Exactly. And I believe a lot of those are people who felt left out of the system. Mm-hmm. You know, they felt left out of the system. So he's got to try to put forth some legislation, make overtures to them so that, you know, in his next gubernatorial race, he might have a little political capital with them.
So do you feel like people that were voiceless, that, you know, that went out and participated in the vote in the election, you know, they didn't get the results that they wanted, so they feel dissuaded? How do you address those people?
Well, I mean that's been a narrative that has gone throughout time with us, with the political process and voting. Some people are active voters, you know. Right. Some people believe in the political process, and then you got those that feel that the political process doesn't work for them. Mm-hmm. All I can say to that is that's not the case. The political process will work for you if you manipulate it, and the word manipulation I think is an appropriate word. You have to manipulate the system in order for it to work for you.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's a historical narrative that why people feel like, you know, their vote doesn't count, or, you know, not to participate in the voting process?
Most definitely. When you look at the history of blacks and the political process in this country, in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed what they call the Emancipation Proclamation. And what that did was make it illegal for southern states to own slaves. Didn't have anything to do with the northern states. All right, didn't have anything to do with them. So if you were a slave in New York, in Maine, or New Hampshire, you were still a slave. All right, it was only the southern states where the Emancipation Proclamation had effect on slavery. That was 1863. 2 years later, at the end of the Civil War, they signed what they call was the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which abolished slavery nationwide. And I'm telling you this just to give you a timeline to bring you forward to where we are now with this voting and the political process. So in 1865, they signed the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery nationwide. 3 years later, in 1868, they signed the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed citizenship rights to all blacks in this country. So now, you're no longer a slave. Now you have citizenship rights. 1868. Remember these dates, all right? In 1870, 2 years later, black men were given the right to vote. Women, white women, black women, they didn't have the right to vote at that time. Only men were voting at that time. So in 1870, black men were given the right to vote with the 15th Amendment. So 2 years later, 1872, 1,510 blacks held political office in the southern states alone. Now that's an amazing number right there, given, 5 years out of slavery,
right.
7 years out of slavery. Now we're becoming fully invested in the political process. And not only was we invested in the political process, we were invested in the economic process, because you had black towns popping up all over the country. Mm-hmm. Kentucky had over 50 black towns. We talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street, mm-hmm. but Durham, North Carolina was actually the first Black Wall Street. Right. So sometimes we look for one thing mm-hmm. to solve our problems and carry us through, mm-hmm. when really it's a combination of things. And in this time period, 1 foot out of slavery, we were doing it. You understand? Mm-hmm. We were doing it.
Do you feel like, with blacks gaining political and economic power, white people in this country were feeling that pressure?
1865, the Ku Klux Klan was formed. Mm-hmm. All right? Right when they abolished slavery, mm-hmm. Ku Klux Klan was formed. Became citizens. Got the right to vote. 7 years later, white folks went on what they called a terror campaign, mm-hmm. trying to convince and intimidate black people not to vote. But based on those numbers, in 1872, mm-hmm. black people went out to vote. They defied that intimidation. Mm-hmm. To whereas in the southern states, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, they put 1,510 people in political office. In 1875, they had 8 black men served in the U.S. Congress. Mm. So, despite the Klan effort and all these other white supremacist groups, mm-hmm. black people went out and voted, got involved in the political process, and as a result, you saw a resurgence, economic and political resurgence amongst black people in this country. Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that the backlash began once black people started exercising that economic and political power? You talk about the Klan uh-huh. and stuff. Where did that backlash for them come from? To make them overtly not want us to vote.
Well, like when we started this segment, mm-hmm. we was talking about the narrative of blacks saying that their vote don't count. The political process doesn't work for them. I'm not voting. You hear a lot of that chatter on social media, and even before social media, that was like a lot of the narrative in the black community about getting involved in the political process. I would say from like the 70s on. But let's put some common sense to that thought that your vote don't count. White supremacist groups were willing to kill black people.
They did.
Were willing to and did kill black people for attempting to exercise their political rights in voting. Lynched them, burned them, used all forms of intimidation to stop you from voting. All right? Once the federal government stepped in and tried to put an end to that, then they tried to put all these other impediments in the way to stop you from voting.
IQ
tests, literacy tests,
poll
taxes, had to own property, all different type of things to try to get you not to vote. 1965, the Voter Rights Bill came in and put an end to all of that. Now, all you have to do is be a citizen, and now you can vote in this country. So now politicians are spending millions of dollars directly related to the black audience to get their vote. Now, when all of those three things are true, and they are true, why would somebody do all of that if your vote wasn't valuable?
Right.
If your vote didn't carry some type of weight? Why go through all of that? You know what I'm saying? When you apply the common sense test to it, it doesn't weigh out. So that lets you know that your vote has some political weight to it. It can weigh some influence in this system. So for us to talk about how it doesn't have any weight, I think that's a conditioned response from the terror campaign. Because when we were going out and trying to vote, and then they was doing all the lynching and the burning and the killing, black people were afraid to vote. They were just afraid to go out and vote. Some of them, succumbed to the intimidation, and they would, instead of admitting that they were afraid to vote, they would say things like, "Oh, my vote don't count. Political process doesn't do anything for us," knowing that the real reason was, "I'm afraid to go vote." You understand? Quick story. They had a very popular case back in 69. I can't recall the exact year, but you can look it up, easy look up. Goodman, Cheney, and Swerner. Goodman, Swerner, and Cheney. They were three civil rights workers that was in the South trying to register people to vote in Mississippi. They killed them boys. It was two white dudes and a black dude. They killed them for going down there trying to register blacks to vote. And this was in the 60s. They, one of the boys, Swerner, his mother was my biology teacher in school.
Wow, that's crazy.
His mother. and at the time, I really didn't understand the full impact of what was going on at that time. I'm in high school, and I'm, got a million different things on my mind. And in the North, I'm living in New York, it wasn't the same mentality as they had in the South. You understand? So, but it wasn't until much later in life when I started studying more and seeing more that I understood the impact of that. And that terror campaign and how black people were afraid to go out and vote. And instead of admitting that fear, they would make excuses why they don't vote. And then the little kids would hear it. And, when grandma says something, when grandpa says something, they run with it.
Right. So what you're saying basically is that that mindset started, and it just kept getting perpetuated down generationally.
Yeah, and instead of looking into it, instead of, to me, it all boils down to a lack of leadership, where people will come in and explain to you how to win in the political system. And hopefully we can give some information here that will spark conversation on how we win in the political system. We can't go about voting like normal Caucasian citizens in this country, because whoever wins, they win.
Right.
Our vote, we have to negotiate with these politicians for our vote. You know, we go out now and vote, and we basically give our vote away for free because we're not doing any type of negotiating, and we don't have organizations that negotiate for us. You notice when these politicians go out, they try to get the teachers union. They try to get the truckers union. So, and that teachers union head, he'll go speak to the politician and say, look, we'll give you our support if you give us this, and this, right? The truckers union will say, yeah, okay, we'll give you our support, but we want you to reduce our road taxes and reduce this and give us that and give us that. So it's a negotiation. Black people, we have to negotiate with these politicians with our vote, but we have to have organizations that represent us.
Well, who do you feel like is the voice of black people right now? What organizations do you feel like, you know? Because honestly, I'm gonna keep it real. Like my generation, we didn't have, you know, black leadership, you know,
The way we had
the
it.
way we had Martin and Malcolm,
Right.
and you know, growing up, you growing up, we don't have that. So like, if Jay-Z says, "Yo, we're gonna get up and go vote," okay, we go vote. If Beyonce say, "Get up and go vote," we're gonna go
Right.
vote. You know, what I mean, there's always a level of celebrity or popularity that's attached to who black people listen to these days, because there's a lack of strong black leadership
Right.
to
And-
even do that. And even if Jay-Z goes in a room and is speaking for me, I don't even feel like Jay-Z is really speaking for me.
Jay, he's not.
As much as I like Jay, I don't
Right.
feel like he's speaking for me, and he can address the things that I would want addressed in the room because of his level of celebrity and, you know, who
Right.
he ultimately is looking, whose interests he's actually looking out for.
Exactly. I mean, we have to stop looking at celebrities and entertainers to speak for us. You understand what I'm saying? We have to get away from that, because in my opinion, right, they're put in place. You understand? They're handpicked by the people who we want to negotiate with. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So, are they really negotiating for us, or are they really negotiating for the people who
Cut their checks.
cut their checks? Exactly, because you're loyal to who pays you.
Right.
You know, so you know we have to get away from that. We have to form our own organizations. So who's speaking for us now? Me and you are some of the people that are speaking for us now. You understand what I'm
I mean,
saying?
like, you
and
had
others like us.
like you had groups like the SCLC and, you know, the NAACP. I mean, I guess those organizations are still around, but are they effective? Like, how effective are those organizations for black people now?
I don't think they're effective at all, because the proof is in the pudding. You know what I'm saying? The proof is in the pudding. I think a lot of these organizations are compromised. I think our thing has to be a grassroots. It has to come from people who have high integrity, and they have to listen to the voice of the people. You know, I forget. I think it was Bush. He had this faith-based initiative where he was talking to all the preachers. You know what I'm saying? And the preachers would go back and give their message to the congregations, but the preachers was the one who was coming out on top, and the congregations wasn't getting anything. You know, we need organizations that go in, negotiate with these politicians. Give you an example. Mayor of New York. He's in control of $100 million budget. You know what I'm saying? If you have votes, a voting block that you can deliver, you meet with that candidate, with the mayor, the incumbent, or the challenger, and you say, look, this is what we want. We want, you're going to be doing some construction. We want contracts to do some of that construction. You know, we want you to hire our trucks. We want, you know, you're going to do some highway work in the city. We want X amount of employees, you know, to be working out there. We want you to buy the cement from us, and we will go form a cement company so we can sell them the cement. You know, you're going to be putting new windows in the schools, and this is, we want a contract or two. Mm-hmm. That's the type of negotiation you get. Mm-hmm. So you can put people to work, so you can have money coming in. Mm-hmm. So when they talk about what's your black agenda, you don't ask them for their agenda. You tell them what you want. Mm-hmm. And when you have that organized voting block, and you can deliver that swing vote, mm-hmm. you know, that's, people don't realize the importance of being that swing vote. Mm-hmm. You are in a very, very strong position when you're on the swing vote, because if you got two candidates and that vote is split, that white vote is split,
they'll do whatever
you want to get that black vote. You understand? Mm-hmm. And then that's when your negotiation power is strong. Mm-hmm. But you have to have that organization. You have to have that mouthpiece that goes in and speaks for you and tells them what you want.
Okay, so you're giving us instances of political capital. We need to have an agenda mm-hmm. so we can implement change in the coming elections. But what do you feel like are the necessary steps for us to begin that process so we can get there?
First of all, mm-hmm. let's say this: what motivates a politician? His paycheck.
Right.
These political jobs, there's some plum jobs to have.
They're very, very, very cool jobs to have.
They're very cool jobs to have. And they want to keep them for as long as they can keep them. And the only way they can keep them is to get voted in. You understand? So one of the main things we have to do is register to vote. Whether you go to the polls or not, mm-hmm. you have to register to vote, because they know exactly in their districts. They know exactly how many people are in those districts. Mm-hmm. They know how many people are registered and how many people are not registered. They know how many people are men, how many people are women, how many people are black, how many people are white, how many people are Asian. Strictly off your driver's license. They know how much money you make, strictly off your social security card. You understand what I'm saying?
Like I worked on a campaign for right. City Councilman H. Lamar Willis here in Atlanta before, mm-hmm. and part of our job was to just go out and canvass the areas in the different districts.
Right.
And we were given like roles, like mm-hmm. Roles and roles of people,
right?
Their address, their names, their phone mm-hmm. numbers, all information.
Right.
But this particular role was the role of what they call super voters.
Right.
These were people that voted in national elections and all your local elections.
Right.
Like if you were in a primary, whatever, mm-hmm. these people voted in all of those. They participated in all those elections.
Right.
And those were the people that he wanted us to go out, talk to, have conversations with, put yard signs in their right. yard, because they know, oh, Miss Hattie, if Miss Hattie has a yard sign, that's who we're going to vote for right. when we go to the ballot. Even if we don't know him, we just know Miss Hattie is
right.
a serial voter.
Right.
She participates in all the elections. So if that's who she's voting for. If
they
I
have
see
respect
that name
for her, so they're going to respect who she chooses.
If I see that name on the ballot, that's who I'm gonna cast my vote for.
Right.
So they know the politicians, the candidates, they know exactly who they're targeting, where they are,
right.
and what it is that they want them to know to get their vote. Right. And I may go to Miss Hattie's yard and she's like, well, you need to tell Mr. Willis that the park over here is underfunded and we need new paint over there. We need the grass cut over there. Mm-hmm. And then I'll think about voting for him.
Right. And putting my sign in my yard.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
because they know you put it in Miss Hattie's yard, you're going to get everybody else on the block.
Right. So these candidates, they definitely know, and the only way that you can become a part of that process is the first step has to be
To register.
register to vote.
Right, because see, the flip side of knowing where they are is knowing where they're not.
Right.
You understand? So if you live in, say, zip code 31001, they know exactly how many registered voters there are. They know how many Democratic, they know how many Republican, and they know how many independent people are registered, and they know how many people are not registered. You understand? Stacey Abrams' strategy was to go after those people who weren't registered, to get them to buy into the system. And as a result, she was almost able to knock off that cat. But if you live in a zip code and 40%, 50%, 60% of the voting age people in there are not registered, you don't count. You might as well not even exist as far as a politician is concerned. And this politician is directly responsible for your standard of living.
Your schools, everything.
Your schools, your sanitations, your public services, everything. You know, your roads, how much money they're going to invest in your roads. You know, all of that is a direct relation. And in your local elections, we concentrate more on the local elections. We try to stress the importance of getting involved in your local elections because these are some of the positions that you vote for locally. Your governor, your mayor, your councilman, your alderman, judges, district attorney. All of these positions, dog catcher, state senators, assemblymen, all of these people are your local election. There's no electoral college. It's
popular vote.
Popular vote. You know, the one that gets the most votes wins. That's why when you hear them talking about that swing vote and black people being that swing vote, that is your most powerful negotiating chip. But if you're not registered, then your chip ain't powerful. You understand?
You lose all your leverage.
You lose all your leverage. And the addition to that is the Hispanic population is growing.
Rapidly.
And they registering.
They
want to register. So if they become the swing vote, you lose negotiating power.
Right.
You understand? So that's why all these people these Hispanics is trying to fight to get citizenship. So just look at, listen, I don't live in Miami, Florida, but I hear the Hispanics that took over down there.
I grew up in Miami, Florida.
There you go.
Absolutely. It's Little Havana.
Little Havana. You know, and it didn't used to be that way. Before the Cuban influx, it wasn't like that. You understand? They done came in and got political power down there. So, listen.
Yeah, your mayor of Miami is guaranteed to be Hispanic.
Right.
He's guaranteed to be. The governor is Hispanic. DeSantis, he's Hispanic.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
right. So listen, we can't stress more the necessity of you registering to vote, because once you are registered, now you are a threat. If you can get your community registered, now your whole community is a threat, and now they have to come and talk to you.
Right.
When you're not registered, they don't even have to come and talk to you.
Why would they?
Why would they? Dig it. You have no bearing on what they do whatsoever. Then all you can do is go out there and march. That's why you have to go out there and march and protest and tear shit up. And then they'll send somebody out there to talk to you, like a Sharpton or a Jesse Jackson, to calm you down, pacify you, and then
the movement fades.
And they're on to the next.
Right.
You understand? So, but if you registered to vote, now this man has to come and make personal appearances and come down there and see what it is he can do for you to make you happy.
Definitely. So make sure that you log on to kspforever.com. We're going to put a link up to vote KSP.gov, so you can register. You can get your family to register, your friends, everybody in your neighborhood. You can definitely log on to KSP Forever and get all the information and resources that you need, so we can begin to get everybody registered, so we can really implement change with this coming election this year, because it's a very, very important election, and we definitely want to be ahead of the game when it comes to it, because that fool in office now, he got to go.
Yeah, but check this
and
out,
all the other
right?
fools in office got to go too.
Right, but check this out. If we didn't learn anything from the Obama presidency and the Trump presidency, we learned the importance of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Immense power do those two political bodies have, and those are a result of your local elections.
Right.
Your senators and your House of Representatives, those are your local elections. They're the ones who you put in Washington to represent you, who are going to sign bills and get things done for your community. Mm-hmm. And if you're not registered to vote, you're not going to get what you want. That's just, that's just how the game is played.
Hey, that's as black and white as we can make it, man.
Right.
Once again, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. KSP Forever, Like Father, Like Son podcast. Your boy Radio God Stu. And my motto is, where a father could be proud of his son, he can also be proud of himself.
And this is your brother, Sutek Amun-Ra. And my motto is, in order for the black man to live, the Negro has got to die. Death to the Negro. Peace and black power, family.